Welcome to the Super Sports Bros Podcast. I am your host, Buddha Phillips, former collegiate basketball player and former high school basketball coach, now training to be a pro wrestler. I'll be talking NBA, NFL, MLB, UFC, and WWE. I started this podcast because I know sports, bro. My goal is to challenge the narrative of the mainstream media and bring real sports talk back by providing listeners with access to opinions of real athletes and not keyboard warriors. The Super Sports Bros Podcast. For bros, by bros.
Bro.
Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is going to be the second installment of the MLB Offseason talk. I have my special guest, Ryan Sanford, back on again. Ryan, what a pleasure it was to have you for the first part of the MLB Offseason episode. I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on Super Sports Bros, man. Glad to be back.
Man, we got a lot to talk about. We still have a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross.
Yeah, or T's to dot, I's to cross. You know, makes sense.
Crisscross. Alright. Breaking news. Scrolling through my Instagram feed, I found something that bolstered your prediction that the Chicago White Sox would win the AL next year. Tony La Russa was hired as the White Sox manager. Now, when I originally texted you that, you said to me he hasn't managed in 9 years and he's going to be rusty or something along those lines. What was your first impression?
I'm definitely shocked. I mean, you see that the success that the White Sox had this year, making it all the way to, I believe, the ALDS against a very challenging foe in the Oakland Athletics, and damn near took that series. They probably should have got it to an elimination game in Oakland and just couldn't close it out. But yeah, I'm shocked that Rick Renteria was fired. Some people believed in upper management that, with the talent they had, maybe they thought they could have gone farther, I guess. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Buddha, what do you think?
I have high hopes for the White Sox franchise and the success of La Russa. He's always been a good guy in my book. Very talented manager, knows what he's doing. Old school. I don't think the 9 years off or however many years off is going to really affect him longevity-wise. They may take some lumps in the beginning of the season as they get used to playing for him, but I think once he either figures out how to reach his team or the team figures out how to fit into his system, that it clicks. I don't necessarily have them winning the AL like you do, but I don't think La Russa is going to have managerial rust. I think he's just, he's really good at what he does. And I don't think the time off really affects him as much as it would other managers that take years off. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, and I think he'll be back in the fold. Like once he gets into the dugout, once he's in that environment that he's so used to being into. And I think the younger guys in that clubhouse, White Sox clubhouse, I mean, they know how experienced he is, how many big games he has under his belt, when he's managing the Cubs.
Cardinals,
yeah, that's what it was. And, he's managed some very big name players, so I think they'll definitely, I think it can only help, but I mean, it doesn't take away from the fact that it was still surprising nonetheless, but yeah, we shall see.
What do they say, Ryan? The cream always rises to the top.
But the cream rises to the top.
So,
yes.
When we last left off, we talked.
Hopefully it rises a little quicker.
You gotta be quicker than that.
You gotta be quicker than that.
Quick feet.
Yeah, quick feet. We last left off talking about how the 2020 MLB playoffs shook up with who did well, who did not do well. We hadn't got a chance to talk about the World Series yet, but I know you had mentioned to me we need to do this. We need to talk about these playoffs as opposed to every other playoff ever. It was different.
Yeah.
It was created uniquely for this situation.
It was difficult to quantify it in terms of statistics based on the playoffs, and you heard it time and time again where play callers, especially in the World Series, you listen to Joe Buck and they're like, this player just hit the most home runs in postseason history. And it's like, yeah, I mean, because the dude had 4 more games to do it, plus. They get more at-bats, in terms of how many games they played leading up to the World Series. So, yeah, more opportunities comes with more statistics. But, yeah, that was one little thing I noticed. I don't know if you heard anything like that, too. But I know Randy Arozarena had a couple jaw-dropping statistics, and it was because of the more open format in terms of how many teams were allowed to play in playoffs, for sure.
Well, there's one thing about me. I like it when we get fair, unbiased reporting in the news. One of the reasons why I wanted to start this podcast in the first place is because I want varying opinions. I want to look at things from all angles. I don't want to be the type of sports talk show that only discusses one thing when it comes to numbers. I want to look at all the numbers. So one of the things I don't want to do on this podcast is shine a light on something like, oh yeah, this guy had these many home runs in this many games. When in reality, if you give as many opportunities at the plate as some of these guys had, you may be surprised to find that those are not the most home runs in MLB history postseason.
Yeah, that was just one of them that came to mind because I remember watching the game and Joe Puck had to put a disclaimer, yeah, it's the most home runs, but also taking into account that is the factor for sure. Yeah, I mean, there's 8 teams that made it to the playoffs this year, opposed to technically 4 or 5. Well, I mean, 6 make it, but I mean, the wild card is a 1-game play-in, whereas this year they just jumped out. 8 teams were playing in the wild card games.
For 3, the game was best of 3, so you got
best of 3, right? So everyone had to play in that wild card series.
You were guaranteed twice as many playoff games. Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Twice as many plate appearances.
I would say that. I don't think that's
you were guaranteed twice as many plate appearances.
I think definitely twice as many at bats as you would if you were playing.
You can make the argument to say you were guaranteed to see twice as many pitches. We could get down to these numbers. I mean, really, we could really crunch the numbers. Yeah, I agree, man. These playoffs were very challenging, for lack of a better word. Challenging to analyze. When you look at the numbers, challenging to figure out who's who in the mid, you know what I mean? Who the elite teams are in the MLB, because regardless if it's 60 games, 162 games, you are who you are. But when it comes to the middle part, the wild card teams, right? We talked about this. When it comes to the wild card teams, it's hey, that's great. We tip our hats to you. However, you add 100 games, you may or may not be there. You probably, hopefully you still be there, but hey, the other teams that didn't make it in this crazy wild card playoff were not far off.
Mm-hmm. That's a good thing, I feel, though, with the open format that they had this year, that other teams that normally wouldn't be in the playoffs got to get a little bit exposure to being in the playoffs. You look at the Blue Jays. Blue Jays had a lot of young talent that needed this playoff experience just to say they got it under their belt, so the next time they're in, they're a little bit more prepared, for sure. The Padres are another team like that, and the Padres kind of dug in. I mean, they made it to the ALDS.
They sure did.
Yes.
They sure did. I kind of agree with you. I mean, fair is fair. I'm all for fairness, but I am also on the other side of the fence thinking you got to make the playoffs regardless if it's 6 teams or 8 teams. I think those other teams that did get that opportunity, yeah, I mean, sick. But if you're Team 7 and Team 8 in those playoffs, you shouldn't let that go to your head. Normally, you wouldn't have made it.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I I mean, I like the old format better for sure. I like the wild card playoff game. You win it, you're in it. That it has more of that playoff atmosphere. That if you're one of those wild card teams, that like you're at a disadvantage. I felt like this year with 8 teams all starting in the wild card for best of 3. I mean, there was no incentive for being like having a really good record because you were all basically seeded based on, the wins weren't, it didn't matter. If you're a 1 seed, you're playing against the 8 seed, So it was like winning during the regular season didn't make those games worthwhile as much.
It makes sense. It's just a unique and different season in the MLB, so why not have unique and different playoff circumstances surrounding it? You had no All-Star game.
I'm not saying it didn't work.
I'm not either. And, my point is, it made sense to do it. I see why they did it. No All-Star game, very different kind of season. But I'm a firm believer in not changing things too much, keeping the integrity of your league. I almost would rather the regular 6-game, the old format.
Yeah, the normal format. Yeah,
I would almost rather.
Format, but I hope. The normal format. I hope it's not old. I hope they go back to it next year. So I don't want to see the new playoff format. I thought it stunk.
This is my question.
I thought it stank, man.
Given everything going on with MLB, they have marked April 1st on their calendar for opening day. In your opinion, if everything goes according to plan, what kind of playoffs are we in for? Are we in for the 6-team playoff, 8-team playoff? What are we doing?
I hope they go back to 6. I like 6. Man, I like the form. I like the fact of you make it to the wild card. It's do or die that game. I don't think they should expand the wild card to 3 games. I don't think they should do that. I like the fact that if you're not winning your division, you're fighting your clawing for a playoff spot, that you got to play the next best team in any division to get into the ALDS. I firmly believe that. I honestly like I don't think they should change it at all. Go back to the normal way once you can play 160 games and let the experiment of 8-game seeded playoffs with no 1-game plan. You got to get rid of that. It just there's way more. It's hard to get excited about baseball in general, making it an elimination game right off the start. That you're jumping into the playoffs that way makes it a lot. It's almost similar to the playing games in March Madness. Like it's basically March Madness, but it's not really the March. You're not in the tournament of 64.
Yeah, it's 66, right? No, it's
66. It's playoff baseball. You win, you're in. I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree. Why don't we get into this? We hadn't had a chance to last episode. It was for good reason. Being from Massachusetts and a hardcore Boston and New England sports fan, it was hard for me to address the elefante in the room with my first episode and special guest Jeff Broder in the NBA offseason, having to give credit where it's due and talk about the Los Angeles Lakers and LeBron James taking home the 2020 NBA championship. Here we are, fast forward, I don't know, like what, a few weeks? We fast forward like 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks, I believe. And
really?
LA takes home another championship with the MLB championship trophy going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And now LA has tried to take the moniker away from us of Titletown. I disagree with that, but that's neither here nor there. Let's just go ahead and bite the bullet. Congratulations, kudos, tip of the hat, LA Dodgers. You won a World Series. Congratulations. It was bound to happen eventually.
Yeah, no, they deserved it.
But, that's where I draw the line. Do it again. I don't know. So, you watched the World Series. I did not. I confess, since the Red Sox were not involved, I was not invested. So I wanted to see what you thought of that 6-game series with the Tampa Bay Rays going down to the Dodgers 4-2.
Yeah, it had every feel of it to you that you'd expect it would in terms of small cap AL team versus a large market big cap NL team. So you had the Dodgers were the clear-cut favorites to win the World Series even before the season started. So when they got there after coming back against the Braves, down 3-1 to come back and win that series, best of 7, 4-3, and get into the World Series, I think it was the Rays had an uphill battle for sure from the start. But when they even did 2 games apiece after Game 4 is when I started to really watch it. I'm going to be honest with you. Games 1 and 3, I guess kind of what expected. I didn't really see a whole lot of those games, but I know that it was pitching duels, and Kershaw, got that bugaboo off his back of being, a postseason miss in terms of his pitching. So I was glad to see Kershaw get into the postseason and perform the way we're used to seeing Clayton, the King Kershaw, perform. So it was good to see it. But Game 4 was one that I'll really look back on and say that this was just a smart play, smart managing by Kevin Cash, putting in unsung hero of Game 4, Brett Phillips, 2 outs, 2 strikes, and the man delivers on you could call it a bloop single, but he hits it off Kenley Jansen, who is one of the lockdown best, closers in the game, taking a fastball right up the fists and getting it just into right field. And then that's where all bedlam breaks loose. You have all of a sudden Chris Taylor sprinting in, knowing that the tying run came in, but Arozarena was on second, so Chris Taylor's coming up already thinking that he's going to fire that ball. And, it's like playing it's playing backyard sports. The nerves get the best of you. Everyone's amped up. He knows he's got to make a throw to the plate. He bobbles it, still able to pick it up, though, and get it to the first baseman. I don't know who, Will Smith. And Arozarena, meanwhile,
at the Hall of
could have scored on the ball. He falls down. Everyone's looking like now they're just gonna. And then the ball. It was just one of those moments that it was where were you when it happened? But it couldn't have happened to a better guy. Brett the Maverick Phillips. Love this dude. Traded right at the deadline from the Royals to the Rays. People say he's a defensive player. He comes into pinch run, but seeing him being able to get up in the biggest spot and Joe Buck calling it the biggest at bat of his life and delivering was, you almost felt goosebumps all over your body, for me at least, watching that. The guy's a class act. He brings so much energy to the clubhouse. He loves seeing his players succeed, and even after the World Series, congratulated the Dodgers on an awesome series and blessed everyone, thanking everyone. Just a class act. Brett Phillips, gotta love him. But just too much to handle. Game 5, Dodgers, they do best. They win Game 5 after the Game 4 heroics from Brett Phillips. You're thinking, okay, Game 6, they might have some magic. It was there. Should they have not have, you keep Blake Snell in, the sabermetrics that statisticians all saying the third time you face the lineup and round in the order, shit breaks loose. Kevin Cash went on the side against the statistics, brought in Anderson, Ian Anderson, maybe, I believe his name was, abruptly gives up 2 runs. Mookie singles one down the line. Jams in against the wall, 2 runs score, and all of a sudden it's 2-1, and at that point he knew it was just too much for the Rays to climb back on. They had, if they were going to win that game 1, it had to have been 1-0, and Blake Snell had to go all 9 innings. It's always quick to point the finger at Kevin Cash here, but let it be known that it was Kevin Cash, which is the reason why the Rays won Game 4 to begin with, by pinch hitting the Maverick with the go-ahead hit. So, tip of Kevin Cash, only person to play in the Little League World Series, play in the College World Series, and then manage in the World Series. So, that dude has a resume to speak for itself. So, good for him, good for the Rays, and I don't think it's the last time we hear of him. I don't. What do you think, Buddha?
It's a classic David versus Goliath matchup. You have the Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Yep. You have the Tampa Bay Rays playing David. You have the Los Angeles Dodgers playing Goliath. One franchise is a big money market. The other one, small money market.
Yeah.
I was definitely rooting for the Rays.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? How can you not? You gotta root for the underdog sometimes. I'm pulling for them.
You look at them on paper, and you're like, how in the Sam Hell did this team make the World Series and be the best team in the AL? On paper.
Yeah.
Because you're looking and you're like, who is this? Who are these people?
Who are you people?
And it just like goes to
They
show
were who
you.
we thought they were.
They are
Yeah, it
who we
goes to
thought they
show
were.
you that
And we
it's
gotta
just
go.
hard for me to root for players after they leave my hometown teams. So, you can show me all the Mookie Betts robbing home run videos and hitting home run videos and winning World Series for another team not named Boston Red Sox, and I'm going to say, great, congratulations, but I'm not rooting for Mookie Betts. Like, it's nice to see him do well, but I'm not rooting for him to do well. Whether he does well or not, I don't care. Like, you left the Red Sox, man. So that factored in. That definitely factored in. I was rooting for the Rays to beat the Dodgers. I agree with you. It's good to see Clayton Kershaw perform well in the big stage. Get his respect. Put some respect on his name. Yeah. Who's the manager of the Dodgers now? Is that Dave Roberts?
Yes.
Good to see him.
I believe so,
Good to see him get a ring.
Good for and he's a great manager. Everyone, he's been in the light, for some of the Dodgers playoff woes over the years, but it's good to see him get it too, for sure. He's a great manager. And the hero of the Boston curse too.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He stole second.
I can't stay mad at Dave Roberts for...
No, that's stolen base in game, or it was game 4, right?
And,
we were down 3-0 against the Yankees.
Maybe when it's all said and done, and Mookie Betts' baseball career is over, he'll be back in my good graces. I don't know. I don't know how long it'll take for those wounds to heal. It's like,
we should once the Red Sox win a World Series without him, we'll send him a gift basket.
Yeah, right. That'll be enough for me. It's like once we win a World Series, I'll be like, okay, Mookie, I forgive you. All right, here's what I wanted to talk about: the MVP of the World Series, Corey Seager. Did you agree with that, and why? Like, if you thought someone else would have been MVP, I want to know who, but. You think Corey Seager was the MVP of this World Series?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I don't think anyone dominated on any side of the ball where you could have said this pitcher performed well enough to get her to this.
Not Kershaw?
This deserved it any more than Corey Seager. It had to have been someone from the Dodgers, and
Kershaw.
Arguably is the captain of that team. Shortstop. He plays every day. He's the heart of that team. I feel like.
Didn't you tell me Kershaw did well? You don't think he did well enough to be the World Series MVP?
Yeah, no, I'm surprised that. Yeah, no, Kershaw would have been my guess here. If I had to say, honestly, I think it should have been Kershaw. If you're really gonna.
Yeah, I'm gonna poke and prod you. You really think it's Seager or Kershaw? You get to pick. It's your choice, right? Who are you giving that trophy to?
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up any statistics that maybe would have maybe pulled anything out, but I think they based it on to a postseason and not just in the World Series.
Yeah, they do. But Corey Seager also was the MVP of the NLCS. They do that as well. They give MVPs for the ALCS, NLCS, and then a World Series MVP. And Corey Seager took away both. That's why I ask. You know what I mean? It's like he can be the NLCS MVP, but you also think he was the MVP of the World Series? Yes or no? You're saying no. You're saying Kershaw, and I want to know why.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, in the World Series, did Kershaw or Seager have a better World Series?
Yeah, I think the World Series call was probably a fine one. Okay. Yeah, I think Seager was deserving.
Okay. The ALCS MVP was Randy Arozarena. Is that how you pronounce it? A Rosarina?
Yeah, I think it's a it's a
Rosarina.
Rosarina.
It's one of those. A Rosarina. Gesundheit.
A Rosarina.
Now,
A Rosarina.
again, I didn't watch, so I don't even know who this guy is, and I feel bad. You've thrown his name.
Don't feel bad. I mean, he was traded from the Cardinals, I think, before the season started. Was like a pretty decent prospect. I forget what the Rays gave up, but I don't think anyone in the St. Louis Cardinals organization was really pumped to see how well he played this postseason.
Yeah.
Wow, was he nasty. Yeah, every time they got up, you almost expected he'd hit a home run. He's that good.
You've thrown his name around quite a lot. Do you agree that he was the MVP of the ALCS?
Yeah, without a doubt, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Without a doubt. I mean, he was breaking records left and right when it came to batting in the postseason, and I think the only way they get past a team like the Astros is with some damn hitting, and he was leading the charge for that 100%.
Good. We're going to put a bow and ribbon on that and get into the next segment that I wanted to talk about. Was that some awards have already come out and some awards have not. I wanted to pick your brain and know who walks away with some of the awards that haven't been named yet and who walks away with next year's awards. And it's really good timing that I have you on this show right now, being that it's November 3rd, because in 6 days, on Monday, November 9th, they start the awards. And they start with Rookie of the Year on Monday, November 9th. They wait a day, and on Tuesday, November 10th, they pick the Manager of the Year. On Wednesday, November 11th, they pick the Cy Young Winners of the Year, and on Thursday, November 12th, they pick the MVPs of the year. So, what I want to do with you, Ryan, is pick our predictions for those awards, and we'll go in order. And there's also some other awards. There's Hank Aaron Award, the Relief Pitcher of the Year Award, Relief Man Award. There's Gold Gloves, and there's Silver Sluggers. So we're going to do our best to predict what we got for that. Let's start like they're going to start. I want to know who your prediction is for Rookie of the Year in the American League, as well as Rookie of the Year in the National League. So last year's Rookie of the Year, I know this isn't really relevant, but I figured I'd just let you know. Yordan Alvarez from the Houston Astros took it last year in the AL. And then in the NL, Pete Alonso of the New York Mets took it. So, this year, the season we just finished, I looked at some numbers, and you've thrown this name around a lot. I hope I'm not stealing it from you. Luis Robert, the outfielder from the Chicago White Sox, had the best rookie campaign in my opinion, and will take the AL Rookie of the Year. Let me just quickly tell you why I chose Luis Robert. Luis Robert led all rookies in RBIs, stolen bases, and home runs. He was tied. He finished second in total bases, so for all rookies.
Wow.
That's why I chose him. Now, in the NL, this was tough for me to decide on, but I landed on a relief pitcher from the Milwaukee Brewers named Devin Williams. And this is why. Now, when you look at Devin Williams, the pitcher from the Brewers, I picked him because he only gave up one earned run all year, and only allowed 8 hits. So, that's pretty gnarly.
That's really good.
That's why I chose who I chose. What do you got for Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Jake Cronenworth from the Padres. Thought that he played, deserved them throughout the year to get those honors. I think Williams and him are kind of neck and neck for that. And I side with Cronenworth just based on him propelling that Padres team, to the playoffs. I think he helped out in that regard. So it was good to see him perform the way he did. So I think he should get it, in my opinion. Batted fairly well here. Post All-Star break, batted 285.
That's definitely a great pick.
Pretty solid on base percentage.
Yeah, he was third
a rookie
in his position for second baseman of all MLB.
Yeah.
For on base percentage. 831.
I think he batted for power too. Stole a couple bases here and there.
Yeah, it's a great.
Actually, wasn't really known as a stolen base. Pretty solid year for a rookie. I think Cronenworth, I think think he played well enough to make his case for NL Rookie of the Year or AL Rookie of the Year. I'm gonna side with you on this. I think it should go to Luis Robert. He got a lot of praise in the beginning of the year for his bat, and I think maybe he could have performed a little bit better to run away with it. But
they said he went into a slump at the end of the year. Even with his slump, he still led rookies in those stats: RBIs, stolen bases, and home runs. So you kind of turned a blind eye to that slump at the end of the year. Still made the playoffs. You know what I mean? At least that's what I did. I turned a blind eye to that slump at the end of the year. So, can I ask you a question and put you on the hot seat?
Sure.
If you had to pick another AL Rookie of the Year just because we agreed, not named Luis Robert, do you know who you'd pick? And if you don't, you can pass and I'll do it. Because I like to, when we agree on stuff, when I agree with my guest on something, I like to provide honorable mention.
I mean, I have a Rookie of the Year that's not in the finalists, who I think should be in there.
Let's both do it.
Instead of Luis Robert, I think it's Sean Murphy.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God.
I thought, playing catcher for the Athletics, I thought he should have been a finalist and for the American League. 26 years old, only allowed 4 pass balls in almost 340 innings for the Oakland Athletics. And he plays backstop like an experienced catcher. And this was only his first full year, technically. I mean, technically he was a rookie. He only played 2019 a little bit. He only had 169 at-bats this year. Was a walk-on at Wright State mid-major. And here he is, 26 years old. Arguably he was starting at catcher for this Oakland Athletics team that made the playoffs, made the ALDS, and he homered against the White Sox in one of the ALDS games. This guy swings a nice pure bat, a great defensive catcher, and I'm shocked that actually he wasn't a finalist for American League Rookie of the Year. I think he should have been in there. That's why I'm a little shocked that Sean Murphy didn't get a nod as a finalist, because I think he does a lot of things that aren't factored into a lot of the Moneyball statistics that we're seeing nowadays, with WAR, slugging, OBP that people take into account. It's not just averages, so...
I'm hearing what you're saying, Ryan. I'm looking at those same numbers you're looking at, and that's great that Sean Murphy did have a nice little year. But then I look at what we chose in terms of Luis Robert, and I look at his numbers, and I realize I wasn't born yesterday when I say this, so I don't want anybody trying to come at me on that front. He's a catcher. I know that catchers don't play every day. I know you rotate your catchers. I know catchers play like, there's very rare in the MLB you're gonna find an everyday catcher. It's very rare, and even those guys get their days off. And I factor that in. But Luis Robert had almost 100 more at bats and plate appearances. You can't. There's a reason Sean Murphy's not a finalist. He didn't have enough opportunities at the plate to get some hits, to hit the ball. I mean, you look at this. He had more strikeouts than hits, right? And he had 37 strikeouts and 27 hits. And again, I know he's a catcher. I know catchers get a little bit of benefit of the doubt when they bat like 200. Because a lot of guys, you're supposed to bat 300, right? But if a catcher bats 200, 225, 250, it's like, okay, cool. We got ourselves a decently good hitting catcher. If a catcher bats under 200, well, now you're